Hey, this is Scott Spears, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Scott Spears Now here on WGH Talk. We are joined by a candidate in the Republican primary for governor of the state, Heather Hill. Heather, it's so good to have you in the studio. Appreciate you making the trip to Marion.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. I'm glad to be here.
Heather, why are you running for governor? How'd you get involved in this?
Well, I am running for governor because Ohio needs a change. We are dealing with a lot of out-of-touch billionaires and career politicians, and things are not getting better for Ohio right now. And I believe that I'm a change agent, and I'm ready to do the work that needs to be done to bring Ohio where it needs to be.
Now, what is your background in?
Well, my background, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a wife, a mother, a foster mother, a military mom, and an entrepreneur.
So, you feel that billionaires have taken over everything?
I didn't say that.
Okay,
I don't feel that billionaires are taking over everything, but we're dealing with a time where a lot of out-of-touch billionaires are running for our political positions.
Taking over political offices?
We have a lot of them that are running for political positions right now. And we're not only dealing with out-of-touch billionaires, but we're also dealing with career politicians right now. And things have to change. We need somebody in the governor's office that is going to put the people first. I don't have anyone in my back pocket, and I'm not in anyone else's back pocket. I am strictly here to do what's best for Ohio.
I want to talk about some of the people who we have running in this Republican primary. Just get your thoughts on them. Dave Yost.
No thought on him.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Really no thoughts on him as well. I'm just, they have their reasons for running, and I have mine. So,
for people who will be making a choice in the Republican primary, what are their reasons? What are your reasons? How do they differ?
Well, one thing, when you look at what I'm doing, I'm coming in as an entrepreneur, as a regular Ohioan that knows what it's like to fight, to struggle, to work hard every day to build a life, and to make sure that we have the things that we need here in Ohio to thrive and bring Ohio back to where it was at one point, bring it back to where it should be.
So for people who will go to vote in the Republican primary in 26, why should they vote for you and not them?
The reason they should vote for me is because, like I said, I know what it's like to fight, to struggle, to work hard every day, to build my dreams, to work hard in the community, to be part of the community, to be part of the working class. I grew up in Appalachia, Ohio. At 16 years old, I worked at McDonald's. I then put myself through college, starting at Columbus State Community College before getting my bachelor's degree from Ohio University. I built my businesses from the ground up. I've been married to my high school sweetheart for over 30 years now, and I've opened my home to foster children. I've been a school board president, just every aspect that you can think of. I own gas and oil rights. I know how important our energy sector is to Ohio right now. And everything that we're doing as far as trying to build Ohio up so that it can be the best that it can be, I have life experiences. This is not something that I take lightly. This is something that I am going to work my butt off to make sure that Ohio has everything that it needs to have the things that we need to be successful.
What do we need most to be successful?
Well, I think there's not a one thing that we need to be successful. There are so many things that we have that we're facing right now. We're facing a housing crisis. We're facing an economic crisis. We have parents that don't have control over what is being taught in our school systems. We have parents that don't have control over their children's health care system. So there's so many things that are happening right now that it's hard to narrow down to just one.
Mm-hmm. But for a voter who might want to know, is there one central issue that you would be running on?
No, there's not one issue. There are multiple issues, and when I say that, I'm being sincere, because Ohio as a whole, we are facing multiple issues that are making it to where we are not able to be where we want to be right now.
What is the biggest issue facing us right now that is keeping us from where we want to be?
As I said, there's really just not one issue. The issues that I listed, those are things that Ohioans are facing right now that are big for Ohio citizens.
Our current governor, Mike DeWine, has been there for 8 years. He'll be completing 2 terms. What do you make of his time as governor?
Governor DeWine has, most of the things that he's done, have been things that are different than what I would do. But I do like the things that he's done for the foster care system. But if I had to, if I was stepping into his position at this exact moment, there would be 90% of the things he's done I would change.
Is there something that sticks out that he did that you found to be complete opposite of you, even though you're both of the same party?
Well, why don't you pick an issue and then I'll elaborate.
How he handled COVID. That made him very unpopular in his own party.
I would have completely handled COVID differently. As a small business owner, COVID was devastating to me and my family. And that's the difference when you're electing someone who understands your struggle, understands what you're going through, understands your plight, versus someone who is a out-of-touch billionaire, a career politician. I went through COVID as a business owner. I went through COVID as a mother with children in college and in high school who had to miss prom, who had to miss graduations, who, we own Ohio Hunting Lodge. At one point we couldn't have hunters in at all, because of the mandates that were put on by Governor DeWine and Amy Acton. So I would 100% change the way that COVID was handled.
How would you have handled it?
Well, one thing I believe wholeheartedly in giving the citizens the ability to make decisions. You can't mandate that we wear masks. You can't mandate that we're vaccinated or we lose our jobs. So there's a lot of different ways that I would have handled that. But you always have to come back to, this is America. This is America. We should have the right to make decisions on what we do, how we do it, what our children are subjected to, what vaccinations we decide to put into our body. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And I think it's interesting because we've just passed the 100-day mark of President Trump being in office. His approval ratings, and it's if you believe polls or not, are at an all-time low, 42% in the history of polling at the 100-day mark. But he has endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy. I believe he did that before the week was over in which Ramaswamy announced he was running for governor. And those commercials have played quite a bit here in Ohio. How do you feel Donald Trump has done in his first 100 days?
Well, this is the thing. President Trump, we hired him to do a job, and he is doing exactly what he told us to do. We need to step back and let him do his job that we hired him to do. I believe that President Trump has our best heart. I think he believes that what he's doing is the best for the citizens of America.
Do you believe what he's doing is the best for the citizens of America?
Yes, I do.
Why do you think he endorsed in a primary so quickly in Ohio for governor, Vivek?
See, I don't know that.
Would you think it would help him with Trump's popularity in Ohio?
Do I think it would help who?
Ramaswamy.
Well, remember I said I'm not going to talk about Ramaswamy or Yost. So,
right.
So let's talk about Heather Hill.
Right.
Because that's what you're here to interview me.
Right. But I was just asking, do you think the endorsement of Trump would help any candidate?
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, you brought up Amy Acton. What do you make of her?
I'm not gonna, you're here to interview me, so let's talk about Heather Hill. Right. Do you have a direct question for me?
Sure. What is the biggest issue that you think Ohio has faced in the last 50 years?
Okay, I don't have a way to narrow that down because we're, this is multifaceted. So we have so many issues that we're facing that have gotten us into the situation. Like you talked about COVID. If you want to pick one issue and talk about that issue,
The economy.
The economy. Okay, go ahead.
How do you feel Ohio's economy has been we'll narrow it down to the last 10 years.
We're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that. You can't, the gas prices are horrible, egg prices are horrible, property taxes are just astronomical right now.
How do we fix it?
How do we fix it? We do a lot of things that are going to, we trim the fat. We literally go in and we trim the fat, and we make sure that we are allocating money to the areas that it should be. Not just allowing this position to be open and that position and this program and that program just because it's always been. This is time for change. And the reason that I went from 0.6% in the polls to 15%, putting me in second place under Vivek Ramaswamy, is because people understand that I understand what it's like to live, work, and struggle every day in this economy.
And so people see you as the regular person in the campaign. Is that what you're saying?
Well, people see me as a change agent. They know that I'm somebody that they can relate to. I've been where they're at. I'm a regular Ohioan. I'm not an out-of-touch billionaire. I'm not a career politician. I am someone that has worked and struggled and goes through the same things that they go through every day.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess, and again, I'm just asking the question because you didn't want to talk about Ramaswamy or any of these other people, and I understand that, but when you say, I'm not the out-of-touch billionaire, I'm not the career politician, isn't that talking about them? Or who are you referring to, I guess, is my question.
Whoever fits that mold. Okay, so you do the math there.
Okay.
But that's all I'm going to say about them. Just like did you interview someone? Did you interview one of them?
Vivek.
Okay, so I'm sure that he probably gave you the same response if you asked him about me or Yost. I mean, you're here to interview me, so let's...
Well, he did talk a little bit about them when I asked him.
Okay.
Yeah, the interview is up online if people want to listen.
Okay.
From last Thursday. But that's irrelevant to the point. Because I think we do want to know how you will change things in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the economy we did, and COVID we did. So as far as making people's life day to day better, how would you lower the price of eggs? You mentioned that.
Well, one thing, like I said, that we have to go in and we have to trim the fat. We have to go in and decide what we need and what we don't need. We don't need stadiums when people cannot afford their property taxes. We do not need stadiums when, having stadiums is great, but we don't need new stadiums that the taxpayer dollars has to pay for. When people can't afford their property taxes, people cannot put food on their tables. People cannot afford to live the lives that they want to live. So that's the number one thing right there. We need to bring common sense back into the governor's office. We need to have common sense. We do not need to build these stadiums when we literally cannot support our families right now.
So, but will that bring the price of eggs down?
That'll bring the price of everything down because that'll adjust. It won't raise taxes. It won't make things so unaffordable, unattainable for citizens of Ohio.
Your life so far. Tell us about your life. What has your experience in Ohio been like?
Elaborate a little more.
What experiences, you talk about the life experiences you've had. What life experiences have you had that separate you from other people and make you the best candidate
Okay.
to be
as
governor?
I said, I'm a wife, a military mom, a foster parent, an entrepreneur. Those are the life experiences that I'm drawing from. My husband and I, like I said, we've been married for over 30 years. We live in Appalachia, Ohio. We live in the middle of a 100-acre farm in a log cabin. in Appalachia. We understand what it's like not to have running water. We understand what it's like not to have broadband. We understand, those sort of things. So, I'm just a regular person that's going to come in here and do what I need to do to fix the issues that everyday Americans are fixing.
What do you think the biggest issue that faces young people is? Because there's a lot of polls out recently that shows young people, Gen Z people, are completely disillusioned with the government more than they ever have been before. And young people don't vote typically. They are the smallest voting bloc.
I think that our young people right now are facing a mental health crisis. A lot of people don't know, but the reason I decided to ultimately run for governor was because 2 of my foster children were shot and killed by law enforcement almost exactly a year apart. We are facing a mental health crisis with our young people, and that's leading to the drug crisis that we're in also. So I think that providing services to our young people so that they can live the lives that they want to live, because they are struggling so bad right now.
To lose 2 foster children to untimely death, in police officers involved, what do you chalk that up to? How do you get through that? A lot of people have been through this.
It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. But instead of just laying in bed and covering up my head, I decided that I'm going to work to help solve the issues and bridge the gaps between law enforcement and our people with mental illness.
Do you think there's an issue with police? Do you think there needs to be reform there?
Absolutely not. 90% of our police officers are great people that are doing what they need to do to protect our citizens, our young people, people with mental illness. I come from a strong background of law enforcement and military. At 2:30 this morning, I just got back from my son who graduated from air assault school, who's in the military. But our law enforcement officers are facing just an uphill battle every day, and they need, when I talk to them, they want and they need more training. We need a live action training facility in Ohio, and that's one of the first things that I'm going to do as the new governor coming in 2026. We need to make sure that we are supporting our first responders. We're supporting our heroes that are in blue, just making sure that they have all the resources they need to do their jobs and do them safely.
We see things like this go on, unfortunately, people killed by police officers. And a lot of times, people make the issue race. Do you think race played an issue in this in any way? Or does it play an issue with any of these killings that have happened?
I don't know if they do with any of the, you really don't know. But as far as with my foster children, I do not believe that race was an issue. I think it was an issue of the police officers feeling like they didn't have the adequate resources to deal with people with mental illnesses.
So how did you as a mother deal with mental illness leading up to these events?
Well, I've had over 50 foster children come through my home over the years, and mental illness is always a huge thing that we have to deal with. And the way that we have dealt with it in our family is making sure that they have counseling services available to them, making sure that they understand that I'm advocating for them. If you're dealing with a counselor that you can't open up to or you feel like isn't meeting your needs, we will work hard to find you somebody that you can relate to. So that's the way that we've dealt with it.
Now, in Ohio, we have a very interesting history in our gubernatorial races. We've never had a female governor, and we've never had a non-white governor elected. Why?
What? I don't know.
No, do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I don't. I think that God put me here at this time and place for this particular reason, and here I am. I just happen to be a black female. So here we go.
Right.
You're going to have your first.
Right. Well, do you think it matters to voters? Do you think they care, or do you just think they look at the candidate?
You know what? I don't think people care if I'm blue. I think that people know that Heather Hill is somebody that's like us, who's going to come in here and is going to work for me. She understands that this is to build a bigger, better Ohio. That's all they care about. They don't really care.
Do you think money plays too big of a part in campaigning? A lot of money's been dumped into campaigns here in Ohio. This election already, we've seen a lot of money dumped in.
Well, if you look back at our last presidential election, money, we thought that money was going to do everything. The other side thought that money was going to do everything, and it didn't. It didn't. President Trump came in with an idea that was going to work best for Ohio, and best for the United States, and the United States voted him in.
Do you think there's anything to the idea that when Trump ran against women, he won? When he ran against a man, he lost?
No.
No. So Joe Biden was just the better candidate, or?
No, he definitely was not the better candidate. God puts people in certain places at certain times. And President Trump was supposed to be our president at this particular time, just like I believe 100% that God put me in this particular place at this particular time to be Ohio's governor in 2026.
What is the most difficult part about campaigning?
My most difficult part has been dealing with the RNC.
Why is that?
It's been, I'm just going to be honest with you, it's been horrible. It's been absolutely horrible. They have a candidate that they want in office, and they will stop at absolutely nothing to make sure that happens. It doesn't matter if it's cussing me out, if it's calling the police on me, if it's telling people not to interview me, not to donate to me. I mean, it's been a horrible experience with them.
What candidate do they want?
I don't know, but it isn't me.
It isn't you. So it's one of the other ones.
Yep, I'm the outsider, and I am a true outsider. I mean, the RNC has. It's been a horrible experience.
So why do you think they have a favorite? Why don't they just let the Republicans in the state in the primary decide?
Well, that's a great question. I would love for you to interview them and find out. I don't know why they just don't sit down with me and say, "Hey, what are your views? What do you have to offer? This is what we're doing for all the Republican candidates." But that's not how they're handling things.
So they're helping.
It's embarrassing how they're handling things.
They're helping other candidates out.
They're doing, yes, they definitely are. They're singling me out to leave out of different events. They've even went so far as to call Lincoln Day dinners and find out if I'm going to be there.
The Republican parties do it, not the candidates.
The RNC, yes.
So what makes you a Republican?
Well, my values line up perfectly with the Republican Party. I am pro-life. I'm a very strong conservative. My husband and I own Ohio Hunting Lodge, and we're very much into our Second Amendment. I mean, you list off everything in the Republican Party, and my views align very well with that. So why the RNC would choose to not, or choose to single me out, that's a good question. I would love for you to figure that out and let me know.
Right. Well, especially if they're running this party, it'd be interesting to know why they would single out somebody who lines up with their values.
Yes, that is very, very interesting. It's
and you have no idea. Have you ever talked to them?
No,
No.
I haven't.
Have you tried to talk to them?
Oh yes, I have.
What happens?
Well, I started calling them a year before I actually decided to run for governor, to just try to get an appointment with them. They would not schedule an appointment with me. Then I decided after the election, because I was very involved in the presidential election, After the election, my husband and I decided to actually just go to the office and say, hey, I'm here. Can we schedule an appointment? It was horrible. He started dropping F-bombs. My husband recorded it. It's online.
Now, who did this? For people who didn't see the video.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look up his name, but it's in the video. But yeah, just cussing me out. Said he didn't effing have to help me, and ended up calling the police to have me removed. And I'm like, why are you acting like this? What is the reason? I'm a Republican candidate that is running for governor. And like you said, I mean, you brought up a good point. I will be the first female governor. I will be the first governor of color in Ohio. I will be the first black female governor in the United States of America. Why would our RNC decide to alienate me?
How do you win without their help?
Well, the thing is, they are not the end all. The Ohio voters are the ones that are in control of this.
It's very interesting. When Mike DeWine was running in the Republican primary, I think back in 2018, he was running against Mary Taylor, who was John Kasich's lieutenant governor. Mm-hmm. And she said very similar things. We can go back and pull the interview. That the Republican Party was supporting Mike DeWine. It was the Old Boys Network. They didn't want her, but she was going to overcome it. We haven't heard from Mary Taylor in quite a while, and Mike DeWine's the governor for 8 years. So this has been said before. I mean, even at one point she went to the extreme to say she would not endorse Mike DeWine if he got the nomination because she felt she was being dealt with so unfairly by the Republican Party. So why does the Republican Party have a long lineage of doing this?
Wow.
And she didn't end up getting the nomination even close.
I don't know. I don't know.
Do you fear that? Because, I mean, it didn't help her, and she was the sitting lieutenant governor at the time.
I don't fear it. Because, like I said, God put me in this particular place at this particular time. And there's going to be a first. And I believe that I'm going to be that first.
If it doesn't happen, what will you say to yourself?
If it doesn't happen?
If it doesn't happen.
I'm not even going to entertain those thoughts.
Okay. So, at this point, you obviously do not have good feelings toward the RNC.
The RNC doesn't have good feelings towards me.
Okay. But it doesn't sound like you like them very much. Now, do you like them?
Oh, well, I love my party.
Okay.
That's the thing. And I'm sure with Mary Taylor, that's what's so heartbreaking, because we love our party. I love my party. I want to be part of the party. I want to help move our party forward. Can you imagine what would happen if the RNC embraced the first ever, not the first in one category, not the first in two categories, not the first in three categories, but the first ever? Do you imagine how that could affect our party?
What do you say?
They are so focused on whatever they're focused on. I don't know, because I've never actually got to speak to them, but they're so focused on something that keeps them from looking at the broader picture. And that's the problem.
So in the end, how do you overcome it?
I run.
You run.
I fight like hell. I fight like hell to be the next governor in 2026, because I know this is what Ohio needs. I don't give up. And let me tell you something. I don't want to talk about my opponents, but I guarantee they will not outwork me. I guarantee they will not outwork me.
Well, it should be an interesting race. If people want to get more information, how do they do it?
They go to my website. It's www.fightlikehill.com. I have all the social media. We have a great group of advisors. Military, our senior advisor is a veteran, Larry, and we just have so many people that are on board that are helping make this a reality.
And what would you say to people who say you don't have the experience?
that would be that's very interesting when people say that to me, because we elected a president who didn't have experience. We elected him a second time, so and what do you mean I don't have experience?
In politics, that you have not, you've been on school board, but have you ever held another political office?
No.
Right. I think that's the experience. A lot of people work their way up. They run on the local level, and then they maybe run for a state office. Dave Yost, I know you don't want to talk about him, but he's been Attorney General. And Mike DeWine certainly he'd been Attorney General.
But I'm not running against DeWine. I'm running against who?
Ramaswamy, Yost.
And he has no...
No, he has no experience either.
Exactly.
But Yost does.
But Yost is in what place?
I don't know in the polls.
I'm in
It depends
second
on which
place.
polls you look at.
I'm in second place. Vivek Ramaswamy's in first place. So
By how many points?
I'm leading Yost by 5 points?
Now, what poll was that?
That was with the Columbus Dispatch poll.
Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think people see that I'm an agent of change. Like I said, the RNC worked so hard to make sure I had no media coverage. Within 5 hours of having that media coverage, I shot from fourth place to second.
What media coverage do you think sprung you the most?
All of it. The very first one to actually, open up her doors to me was Colleen Marshall.
Oh yeah, she's been on a lot. We love Colleen.
Yeah, I mean, she no matter what everybody was telling her, she opened up her studio to me and sat down and had a conversation with me, and I just love her. I think she's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, what question did she ask you that you felt was the most substantive?
I can't even remember. I've had so many interviews now, but just the fact that she was the first. When everybody else was turning me down, she was like, we're going to do this. And that means the world to me. Because, one thing I'm finding, people, when they actually get a chance to talk to me and ask me questions, when I go out and I do interviews and I meet with people, I'm not following what everyone else does, where they just get up there and they yap. I actually tell them a little bit about me, and then I give them the opportunity to ask me questions, because people don't know who I am. And whenever everyone that I actually get to sit down and have a conversation with, they're like, "You've got my vote." So that's the thing. When people like you invite me onto your show so that people can get a chance to know me and know what I represent. Thank you for doing that, because that right there, it gives people the opportunity to know who I am. One thing that I definitely do that no one else is doing is I publicize my phone numbers. You want to talk to me? I don't care who you are. As long as you're a citizen of Ohio, you call me, I will have a conversation with you. Because that's how it should be. One thing that we have lost, we have to remember that we are public servants. We are not, above the citizens of Ohio. They're untouchable, they're unapproachable, that's not how I'm going to run my office. If you need me, I am going to be there.
Now, just before we run out of time here, you say that the RNC, the Republican group, has shut you out of media, or you've been shut out of media. What media is shutting you out? Colleen Marshall had you on. The Dispatch is obviously covering you in the poll. Those are two big outlets in Ohio. What media has shut you down?
Well, the Dispatch has yet to interview me. I've tried to get an interview with them. Up until Colleen, once Colleen broke the ice, everybody then wanted to interview me. But she took the first step. She took the first step in saying, okay, I am going to treat all the candidates fairly. And that's what she did. And, there's still news media all throughout the state of Ohio that I haven't heard back from. There's been the larger ones that you can pull up on my YouTube channel. But there's still a lot of them that are refusing to interview me.
And you think that's because of the RNC?
Yes, I think it's definitely because of the RNC influence, yes.
And is there any way to break that in the next year and a half?
Yes, there is. I'm literally any event that I'm invited to, any, like with yourself, anyone that wants to sit down and talk to me, I'm going to sit down and talk to you.
And we wanted to have you on for a long time because I think it is important that people hear from every candidate.
That's right.
I mean, that's what this is all about. They got to know what you're running, what you're doing, what your plan is, or how else do they know which way they want to vote?
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's all about. My final question is to you while you're here. To you, what is the biggest obstacle you will have to overcome to become governor?
The RNC.
Number one.
The RNC.
Well, I'll tell you, that's tough when your own party is the one that you have to overcome.
Yes, it is.
But no real plan at this point on how to do that.
No.
So it's just there.
Yeah, I'm just, maybe they'll watch this. RNC, hey.
You want to talk. You
I
want to
talk. I'm not scary. I'm not going to hurt you. I mean, whatever.
At this point, you just want to have a conversation with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to be treated like you treat everyone else.
Do you think the police getting called maybe has caused a problem with them? They called the police on you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you think maybe that's a problem for them?
You find out and let me know.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll hear back.
Well,
Who
no,
knows?
but there was the problem before they called the police. The problem was that they said, "Oh, I don't effing have to work with you. You leave." And I said, "No, I'm not going to leave because I have a right to be here. I'm running for governor. I'm a Republican, and I have a right to be here just like everyone else." So.
And this was who? You don't remember who this was at the Republican Party?
Yeah.
We'll have to fit, but it's on your page.
Yeah.
So people can find it. But it's interesting. I mean, I think it, like I said, go back and listen to those Mary Taylor interviews. I believe the Dispatch covered the interview I did in which she said she would not endorse DeWine because she felt that the party was backing him and leaving her out of things and not, treating her fairly. Mm-hmm. So, it's interesting that this still is a problem 8 years later.
Wow.
And continues on, and that's where we are, I guess, in this particular state. Have you ever met with Governor DeWine?
Oh, yes.
And what's your take on him when you meet? Is he nice and cordial and everything's fine?
Yes, he's nice and he's cordial, but he's not helpful.
What have you asked him to do?
Well, for one thing, I asked him to help me communicate with the RNC before it blew up. When I was just calling, and I couldn't get any response. I was like sending him messages and, "Governor DeWine, will you help me? Because I need help bridging this gap. And I don't want to get involved. I don't, so."
That was his response. I don't want to get involved.
I'm not getting involved. That's, I can't do this. I can't do that.
So after the blow up, does he talk to you now?
We had a meeting for the first time. It's been a couple weeks ago at his home. That was the first time that he has actually met with me. And he appointed me to the MLK Commission, which actually he didn't appoint me, but he did appoint me. But I had never actually got to have a conversation with Governor DeWine until just here recently.
And how did that go?
He's very nice. He's a very nice person, but he's not helpful.
What did he, I assume you brought up your treatment by the
Yes,
RNC
I
at this, and he said what at that point?
I can't remember what all he said, but I can tell you he wasn't helpful.
Wasn't it? So the governor is not going to be helpful. The RNC is not helpful. Who can be helpful in the party?
The voters. The voters are who's going to make the difference. And the only way we're going to stop this cycle is the voters stand up and they say, "We're not going to put up with this. We're not going to support the Good Old Boys Club because it's not going to end until they do something about it."
For people who say, and we got, I think, 2 minutes left here. For people who say this state has been run, at the end of Governor DeWine's term, this state will have been run by Republicans for 16 years. Governor Kasich had 2 terms, Governor DeWine had 2 terms, and that any economic problem in Ohio has been caused by the Republican Party. There hasn't been a Democrat be governor. Every state office is held by Republicans in this state right now. Every state office, single one. So any economic issue in this state, any problem in this state, the legislature's majority Republican, highly majority Republican. Who's to blame for these problems that we have?
Well, I'm going to go back to what I said before. we are dealing with out-of-touch billionaires and career politicians. If you have a politician that's only worried about every 4 years making sure that they have a job, the people of Ohio is not in their best interest. And that is where that's where we're going wrong. We don't need to change our party. We don't need to change the foundation of the Republican Party and what we stand for. We need to change the people that we are electing into the Republican Party. When you have someone like myself who has the people's best interests at heart, who lives every day, who goes through the everyday struggles of regular Ohioans, then that is where the change is going to come about. But if we keep electing the same good old boys, this is what's going to happen.
Final question, a direct question here on a direct issue. A lot of people in Ohio right now are worried about immigration. We had, they're eating the cats and dogs in Springfield during the election. That was an immigration issue. We have immigration issues right now with visas being pulled for students at the Ohio State University. How would you, as governor, handle what's going on at Ohio State with the visas and immigration?
Well, let me tell you one thing. If you're over here to get an education and you're coming over here causing trouble, you need to leave.
If you're not causing trouble, if you're just a student on a visa.
That's not what's happening. They're not just kicking people out just because. It's people that are coming over here causing problems, that are protesting and making it to where, students, right? The students that are on the campuses are uncomfortable because they're just causing turmoil. Those people need to leave our country.
So are you saying that every student at Ohio State that's had a visa pulled has caused a problem?
To my understanding, yes, that is what I'm saying.
I don't think they would agree.
Well, I mean, there's some issue that they pulled the visa. I don't know if it's just causing of trouble, but there's some kind of rules and regulations that those students are not following that's making them pull their visas right now.
So if you're on a visa, you're not causing any trouble, your visa should stay, you should go to Ohio State.
Why wouldn't it stay?
I think that's what a lot of newspapers and media are asking right now. Because there was a big story on the front page of the Dispatch.
We're not the governor. The president is not trying to pull all the visas on every student. It's just students that are out here making it to where the focus is not education. We were gracious enough to invite you into our country or accept you into our country so you can get an education, not to come over here and stir shit. If you're going to do that, then you need to go back home because we're not going to deal with it.
Is that physical or just protesting for what you believe in?
Well, no, it isn't. It isn't just protesting. They're not here to lead a protest. They're here to get an education, and that is important. When you have regular students at Ohio State that are trying to get an education and can't because of all the turmoil that is happening on campus because of certain students, they need to leave.
So in the case, immigration being our final topic here, in the case of Springfield during the election, they were legal. Mike DeWine made that legal under the Biden administration. So should the Haitians in Springfield, who are not being violent, have to leave?
Why would they leave? Has anyone asked them to leave?
I think there have been threats of that.
Who threatened them?
I believe certainly the policy has... Would you want to change the policy that Governor DeWine has toward Haitians in Springfield?
I don't know. I would have to really look at. Who's threatening them?
Well, I think they have received. I believe they have received physical threats since that debate performance by President Trump. When he brought it up, every other state in the United States, the top Google search was abortion. In Ohio, it was Springfield. It was immigration, because of this remark.
Well, and what remark? You're talking
that
about
the people in Springfield are eating cats and dogs, the Haitians.
Okay.
So there was a lot of violence. I've had the mayor on the program. He was threatened with violence because of that comment. And the president and the vice president would not apologize for it.
Well, you've got to remember, they were given certain data, and that's what they reported from. That's what.
Do you think they were eating cats and dogs in Springfield?
I don't know. Do you know?
I was told no by the governor, by the mayor.
Do you know personally?
I don't know anything personally.
Okay, well,
mean,
I
who
can't
would?
answer that question either.
Who would?
I don't know either.
There were no police reports filed. How would President Trump know? If you don't know and I don't know, how's he know?
Well, he knows a lot of things that we don't know. So.
Oh, okay. Well, not a president at that time?
He knows a lot of things we don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, I can't answer that,
It's interesting. Big story.
I know
Certainly
Dave
went on and on.
Chappelle, has said that they were not doing it, but we've had so many other people that have said they were. I've tried to reach out to Dave Chappelle to actually talk to him about the Springfield issue. I met with the commissioners in Springfield and different things that they're doing with the Haitians and how they're helping with their economic situation in Springfield. But as far as talking about whether or not they're eating cats and dogs, I don't know what they're eating. I don't know what's happening over there.
It was an interesting...
Now, I know that in Haiti, that is something that they do. Is it not?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But I've never seen... There is not a police report of it happening in Springfield, Ohio. So if somebody knows how or why or where this came from, I think we would all have liked to have known before death threats were sent to the mayor of Springfield, Ohio.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, there it was. Heather Hill running for governor in the Republican primary. Watch out for her. I'm sure she'll be on the campaign trail. Thank you, Heather, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Scott Spears heading for the dugout.